We have one last speaker today, and it's kind of a change in topics a little bit. We're going to introduce Wes Brittenham, who's been here all day since early this morning. So Wes, thank you for hanging with us. Wes is a lifelong gardener who has designed and cared for a wide variety of landscapes and gardens. He's the farm and landscape manager here in New Mexico, in Albuquerque, at the Los Poblanos Historic Inn and Organic Farm, where he oversees 25 acres of lush gardens, vegetables, herbs, native grass, and wildflower meadows, and 3 acres of lavender. It's just, I've been down there, not the entire facility, but the lavender is just amazing. Wes has worked with beekeepers and bees for over a decade and keeps hives on the farm, both top bar and the AZ Slovenian hive. His passion for pollinators influences the gardens in his care. And so he's going to share with us delights of earthly gardens.
Wow, thank you all. This is kind of amazing. Today has been extremely educational, and I so appreciate every one of the speakers before me. Randy, Tina, Julia, Jennifer, it's been extraordinarily inspiring, and I've learned a lot. Some of you may know that I had some questions about giving this presentation because it's so not what you guys are all doing. And, you know, I come to bees from really a landscape and a gardening and a horticultural background. I was lucky enough to have come up through horticulture from traditional chemical heavy sort of Disneyfied landscapes through permaculture and water harvesting and edible landscapes and food forests and wildlife habitat and pollinator gardens. And so to me, it really is true that we're absolutely all connected. And several of you, in fact, all of you, I think, have made that clear that everything we do is connected. Jennifer, one of the things I enjoyed about your presentation was especially the fungus. I just happened to watch Fantastic Fungi last night and have been having some conversations about that. And so I like to think of those mycelial filaments as all of us on the spider web of our own evolution and how we have gotten from where we were to where we are today and where we're going. So this presentation, Earthly Delights of Gardens, was something that I had done just to take us a little bit out of all of the technical stuff, all of the specialized stuff, and kind of just back to nature and what we think of as a garden. So I'm just thinking about the things that maybe make us sing, make our hearts sing. This is a silhouette of a Steller's jay that a couple of years ago came down from the mountaintops into the city. I've never have seen that before. It was climate driven, I'm sure, and food and water driven, I'm sure. But I find something in all of the gardens, whether created by humans or created by nature, to inspire me. And I want us all to remember that the pollinators are active in all of these gardens. We've been talking all day about honeybees, but there are so many other pollinators out there, and every one of these gardens is a home for them. Maybe a garden is just something you contrived in your own backyard. You collect little bird houses or whatever and create a little artsy space to sit and watch the bees in your flower pots. Maybe you want a garden that's just simple and plays of shadow and light and texture and color. This one doesn't look too pollinator friendly, but maybe it soothes somebody's soul. This is a design I did for a client many years ago. You know, the paths that we walk, the labyrinths, the mazes that we go through to get where we are to a better understanding are all part of our journey on understanding how to better be partners with all life on this planet. I think a lot about texture and color in landscapes. This is my front yard here in the middle of town. I'm actually looking from my house across the street towards my neighbors, but I'd rather see gardens full of life than asphalt and concrete. So it's just a little different. Um, this is a view at work, an alley of cottonwood and elm trees that was designed by Rose Greeley, a landscape, one of the very first female landscape architects out of Cambridge. She designed this at Los Poblanos in the 1930s, so this is the entry driveway. One of the things I really enjoy about running the horticultural program at Los Poblanos is it takes all of the things that I've spent the last 40 years learning and applying myself to onto one piece of property. I went from being a commercial pesticide applicator, one of those chemical guys, to absolutely an organic farmer. I became an organic gardener over 30 years ago, and my holistic sense of managing gardens is exactly what we're doing at Los Poblanos. So I'm really grateful for that. Just a lovely shot of our hacienda and one of the gardens under my care. You know, food forests are great. I have a really lovely relationship with some incredible chefs. Our James Beard finalist and multiple times nominee chef Jonathan at the restaurant Campo has taught me so much about growing the right kind of vegetables for his creative pursuits. But all of these gardens are great pollinator gardens. We've got our Slovenian bee house with the AZ hive sits right in the middle of the vegetable farm. And all of these things are around there. We also have borage all over the property. I plant borage. I don't think I have a photo of it in here, but I use borage not only for the edible flower and leaf, but many years ago, an old gardening friend told me that borage is a deterrent to the sphinx moth that creates the tomato hornworm. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I rarely have hornworms, and so it's interesting to see that perhaps borage also has a benefit to the bee. We have, you know, I have had so many bee mentors. I don't call myself a beekeeper yet. I've been working with and keeping bees on the shoulders of my mentors for almost 15 years now. And I've learned an awful lot. And we have top bar hives that we've resurrected from the late Dr. Armin Remby's hives that he kept back in the 80s and 90s. We're pursuing a study with New Mexico State University on integrated pest management. So they have some top bar hives, some flow hives, and some Langstroths with some broodminder data control monitors in them that monitor things like temperature and humidity. They've installed some pollen scrapers to be able to determine what sorts of pollens the bees are bringing in. And then these pollens can also be analyzed in the laboratory to see what chemical compounds. So we might be able to tell what sort of pesticides our neighbors within our bee foraging range might be using. So it's great to have a variety of hives. We're looking at whether or not one hive is better than another hive for keeping bees in the Albuquerque area. I think NMSU has 5 apiaries across New Mexico to look at some different geographic locations with sort of the same hive models. And Bob, maybe your AZ hives are part of that study, I think. This is just fun, you know. Part of this presentation is to take a deep breath from all of this information we've absorbed today and just sit back in the garden, maybe with a nice beverage, and maybe not at this time of year. This particular slide was when one of my employees left a sprinkler on in the garden all night and we had a freeze, and it just created these beautiful droplets of water on some pecan shell mulch, frozen ice. So I encourage everybody to sit back and watch. I've probably learned more about holistic management of landscapes by watching than anything else. I've been watching for a long time, and I'll be watching until I'm not able to anymore. You know, color and texture. This is some beautiful woods rose against a painted wall in the autumn. The rose hips and the leaves are just a beautiful color and texture. Maybe this is our uh, deep breath, deep breath and meditation after some pretty heavy duty education. So hope you enjoy it. You know, color and texture throughout the year is very important. When I'm designing gardens, I'm always designing for the wildlife that's going to inhabit it, but also for plays of shadow and light and season. And these next few slides are part of that. This is a sumac plant in the fall, great pollinator plant, an edible berry, and just terrific fall color. Leaves of the native big tooth maple. This is actually a sugar maple that grows up in the Manzano Mountains on the east side of the mountains, east of Albuquerque. The colors are what give our 4th of July Canyon its name, named for the blazing colors of the maple tree. New Mexico is not known for a lot of great color besides the aspens and cottonwoods, so we're lucky sometimes. This is the seed pod of Acer Negundo, another native maple that grows in the canyons on the Sandias. So just, again, texture, shadow, light, and one of the ways I wind down in the garden after a lot of work. Bradford pear, actually this is Chanticleer pear, one of the ornamental pears, a great pollinator tree, good show of flowers in the spring, but just some absolutely terrific fall color. Peonies. We have fabulous flower gardens all over Los Poblanos. Rose Greeley also designed a fairly formal rose and peony garden. And because I spent most of the last 30, 35 years working with native plants, I was not such a rose or a peony person. I figured they belonged in sort of Renaissance paintings. And though my late mom loved roses, I wasn't so in love with them until I took over the gardens at Los Poblanos, and roses and peonies are just amazing flowers to me now. So much variety in the color and texture, and the gardens are just alive with bees. Hopefully we have long seasons of bloom across the property to give our bees good stores of pollen and nectar whenever they need it. Certainly this guy has quite a bit of pollen captured all over the body to bring back to the hive. This is on Cosmos. These guineas are no longer. This peacock is maybe still around. We had 3 guineas running around the property for so long, enjoying or creating enjoyment for the guests and visitors and the staff. But the coyotes plucked them off one by one. So I have a brand new flock of 11 lavender guineas that I just started free ranging with the chickens 2 days ago. And we still have several peacocks, some that we raised from eggs in an incubator. These are a couple of the old guys. One of these guys is in the picture there. Sadly, the other one was hit by a car on Christmas Eve a couple of years ago. So I actually wrote a blog about my peacock year. You know, some of these are just fun. I took a trip to the Botanic Garden with some friends. It was one of my wife's friend's daughter's 3rd or 4th birthday. And so we took a bunch of kids and I just took a bunch of pictures. So I just loved everything about the natural world. This is kind of an interesting, this is how I spent my winter vacation. So bear with me on these slides. We had some friends that had been down to an off-the-grid coastal semi-village called Cabo Pulmo on the southern tip of the Baja Peninsula on the Gulf of Cortez or the Sea of California side. So completely off the grid. Those are whale rib bones put up in the sand outside of a palapa that we stayed in. And my wife and I and 2 friends stayed in this palapa on this beach. We were at this one for about 4 or 5 days, and we were the only 4 people. That palapa could have slept 15 people, and we had probably 4 or 5 miles of beach to ourselves. So an incredible range of pollinators, bees I'd never seen, butterflies I'd never seen, and plants that also I'd never seen, but some that related very much to plants that we have here. We stayed there for some beautiful sunrises and sunsets. We had some full moons while we were there. Enjoyed quite a bit of wine in the evenings. This black witch moth came to enjoy some of the wine with us. When I stepped out to look at the light of the full moon, this wonderful little hermit crab was on the porch right outside the palapa. So it was just a world away for me who works a lot and doesn't get away a lot. And this was kind of a little December getaway a few years ago. Beautiful, beautiful moon. We moved down the coast for our last 4 or 5 days there and actually stayed in a little compound that is owned by a couple that actually live in the East Mountains here. They created a habitat garden. So it's a walled compound with this beautiful thatched roof casa. And then my wife and I stayed in a little casita at the corner of the property. And the reason our friends invited us down there was that they had stayed at this place before. And because it was landscaped for pollinators and for birds, they knew that I would love it. And they knew that they had to get me down there. And I was so grateful. This is me in the doorway of the little casita in the corner of the property where we stayed. Both of these places, the ocean was 50 to 100 yards away. I had the best sleep that I've ever had since childhood. And just like childhood, the days lasted forever. So many cool things. This is a thrasher. We have very similar thrashers here in New Mexico. This one was in a little brushy area right off the patio of our casita and putting up quite a ruckus. So I was taking pictures and trying to see what the thrasher was so excited about. And underneath the brushy little landscape below the thrasher was this pretty cool rattlesnake. I'm not sure what kind. I got a few good pictures until the snake slithered away. This hummingbird came to keep us company, just hanging out off the edge of the patio, posing for pictures. I must have shot 50 or 60 pictures of this hummingbird, but it reminded me of some of the shots that I've taken in gardens right here at home. This is hummingbird in a fern bush at the nursery when I was running Plants of the Southwest a few years ago. I was wandering around with my camera and I caught this hummingbird. This is a female black-chinned, and it was playing chase with this dragonfly. And I chased them, trying to get a photograph of both of them together. I couldn't believe they seemed to be playing. And I have pictures of hummingbird feet in the top of the frame and a dragonfly wing off to the side. And I never did manage to get a shot of both of them. So, but it was just one of the beautiful things that goes on in the garden when you take time to slow down for a minute and look. I love spiders. This spider happens to be eating a honeybee. This is a beautiful orb weaver, a cat-faced spider in my backyard. Decided to make its nice web near my herb garden where I have lavender and oregano and thyme and sage. And of course, all the bees are there pollinating away, and spiders are opportunists, and this honeybee got a little close. I felt sort of morbid watching this happen, but that's part of the web of life. So. This is back down in Cabo Pulmo, a lovely butterfly on mimosa species that we don't have here in New Mexico. There was a little Talavera bird bath off the patio of our casita, and it brought in so many interesting birds that a few that we see here, but many that we don't. And it was just such a gas to chill out and watch them splash away. We also spent a lot of time splashing away, swimming and snorkeling and whale watching, and something I don't get to do much here. This is, what is this, a Pheroloxa? I can't really pronounce it correctly. I think I'd have to have it written in front of me, but this is kind of an ancient species of bird that we do see here in Mexico sometimes, and I really enjoyed seeing in greater numbers down there. I was quite intrigued by the plants on the dunes, how they held the dunes, the crab tracks that you would see in the sand every morning. and some of the species that were unlike anything we have here, and then some that were very similar. One of the things that was interesting, I actually put this presentation together for a talk I did in Abiquiu a couple of years ago. They had invited me up 4 years ago or so to do a presentation that was more on native plants. And it was sadly for a lifelong New Mexican, my first stomping around Ghost Ranch. I just had never done it. So I had been photographing Abiquiu and kind of found some parallels in the landscape down on the tip of the Baja Peninsula. Some of the rock forms on the ocean were similar to rock forms we find here. Just very interesting. I like the way that the cliffs of Abiquiu, this is back up in Abiquiu, and there was a section on a beach at a reef where we were snorkeling that so much reminded me of this. And I use a lot of these natural landscapes to inform my own style of landscape design. This is back at Cabo Pulmo. This is the bottom of the cliff where the ocean washed these stones up against the base of the cliff and the sands moved down. So I've actually used this technique of design. We ripped out a swimming pool in our backyard. And when I was retaining the walls where the swimming pool came out, I used this as an influence in the design in my new garden. This is looking at those cliffs with the ocean behind me and how similar that was to northern New Mexico. It was just kind of amazing to me. Again, here's some of the similarities. Just I don't remember, folks that are around Ghost Ranch and Abiquiu probably could tell me the names of those formations. I don't know them, but just a beautiful place. This was an interesting, this is a datura with the crab spider on the beach at Cabo Pulmo. And I noticed how, how similar, and obviously datura this flower was, but the shape of the plant was so different than the datura that we have here. This is the flower of datura in my backyard. This on the beach is a devil's claw down in Cabo Pulmo. I think we have some yellow flowered devil's claw here in New Mexico. I've seen some posts on Facebook. Another great pollinator plant, an edible plant, has many uses, but I was intrigued that in Cabo Pulmo, it is a ground covering, trailing, low plant, where here it's an upright bushy plant with this sort of Walt Disney looking anthropomorphic flower. This is actually a plant I'm growing for potential uses at our restaurant. I've learned that this has been a long time food source and basket weaving source for Pueblo people, for especially the Acoma people. They use the devil's claw, the dry pods, for black fiber and basket weaving. And the pod that is formed after the flowers when it's young is prepared and eaten any way that you might use okra. And the seeds of the pod are quite nutritious and taste somewhere between sunflower seed and pinon seed. But I've recently learned that the Navajo do not consume or use the devil's claw because in their culture, it is a plant that is for the serpent people. So where the Pueblo people use it, the Navajo people do not. So when I'm studying native plants for pollinators and food, the circumstances of my education are really kind of surprising. This is a dove down at Cabo Pulmo at the edge of our patio. Nothing special, just a dove. But the same dove in an oak tree in my front yard. So I just, maybe I put these slides together in a way too, to keep emphasizing the connections, the mycelial connections, the spider webs, the action and reaction and the relationship we have to everything around us, and how the choices we make in our landscape strategies and our hive management strategies and how we live our lives, we never really maybe understand how we're impacting things around us. The Orioles in Mexico were not quite as elusive as the Orioles in my own backyard, so I took the opportunity to try to get some nice pictures there because I cannot photograph them in my own backyard, but I can photograph the cedar waxwings. I just think the animal life in a holistically managed landscape is something that is very inspiring to me. Quail, these are quail down in Mexico, but we certainly have lots of quail here in New Mexico as well. Um, I'm a bird guy as well. For any of you that know me, I've always had birds around. But I was thrilled to see cardinals in Mexico because I don't think cardinals come to New Mexico. So it was kind of really cool to have them outside our casita down there. We sat on the porch one night drinking some wine and had some bird feeders out. And I'm not sure if this is a wood rat. It's larger than a mouse, smaller than a pack rat. I don't know what it is, but he finally got tired of waiting for us to go away and crawled up into a bird feeder to gorge while we watched him and took pictures. This is a night blooming cereus that was down there. Kind of cool to see. Just a lovely picture of iris season in my backyard after a rainstorm. Just beautiful plants. This is a honeybee on. Oh my God, I'm going to have a senior moment here. Cliff Fendler bush, one of my favorite native plants. It grows all over New Mexico. This is in my yard, but there's also these also grow in the canyons on the west face of the Sandia Mountains. So a great native pollinator plant, one of the more interesting shaped flowers on some of our native plants here. Primroses, lots of primroses in the garden, great pollinator plants, probably more for moths and things because they bloom in the evening and in the early morning when bees aren't quite so active. This is a dahlia flowering. This is actually, I think, taking up plants in the Southwest. I don't have any dahlia in my yard, but great nitrogen fixer and also a great late pollinator plant for any New Mexico gardeners here that can grow black dahlia especially. This thing blooms even past frost, so it's a really great late pollen and nectar source when most things have finished blooming. This is just a random shot of an annual poppy in my backyard. I thought it was just kind of neat late afternoon, sort of popping out against a darker background. This is an evening shot in the backyard. This is one of my impulse buys. I generally don't buy plants at Home Depot. They're known for using neonics, so excuse me, I generally tend to avoid them. I had gone there for hardware, who knows what, and they had those sort of impulse buy 25 bulbs for $5 at the cash register or something. The Stargazer lily just looked so pretty on the package. I decided to put it in, and they did beautifully in the yard for about 15 years. They've kind of been shaded out now, but stepping out at night to see the sphinx moth feeding off of it and a little crab spider there to the left that you can see. They're also amazingly fragrant. They're right outside the back door and kitchen window and seem to release their fragrance in the late afternoon and evening and bloom right around my wife's birthday, just around the end of June. So I always like to have full seasons of flower in the garden, also something that's going from spring all the way to frost or past, if I can do that for all the critters out there that take advantage of the flowers. This is one of the best native pollinator plants I know as well. This is prickly poppy. So every part of the plant is prickly except the flowers. The flowers look like giant fried eggs. And if any of you have this in your garden, probably you've been amazed at how many bees can fit around the center of that flower at the same time. And they bloom in the hottest, driest places ever, like the cracks of sidewalks and things. This is an interesting little rose, a simple old-fashioned rose at Los Poblanos. I'm not sure the variety, but just beautiful, beautiful flowers. Another old-fashioned rose, a simple rose. Don't know the name of this one either. I inherited a lot of these plants. Didn't plant them myself, and almost none of them are tagged or named, and the history of them is sort of forgotten. So I just been there to take care of them and enjoy them. We have a small pond with some water lilies that I really enjoy. I don't have any, other than a few bird baths, I don't have open water in my yard anymore. So I'm enjoying having a lotus pond on one side of the property and a lily pond not far away. This is another one of the lilies, a couple of tiny little native bees in there. I don't have in this slide, there's no pollinators within this flower, but quite often the native bees are really fond of the flowers of all sorts of squash and cucumber and melon. And quite often, early in the morning, you find bees that have snoozed away and spent their entire evening inside a blossom. So I really enjoy kind of just going through the farm and looking at the vegetables and seeing who's feeding on what. This is also a super active pollinator plant. This is the flower of Cardoon. So obviously it's a thistle. It's closely related to the artichoke. It's a massive thistle. These guys get to be 4 to 5+ feet tall and wide. At Los Poblanos, we harvest the leaf of the plant, and the chefs use the stem, the rib on the underside center of the leaf, unlike the artichoke where you would utilize the unripened flower head. They'll take the rib and peel it and blanch it and parboil it and saute it and turn it into amazing foods in the restaurant. But this plant is, again, one of the most active pollinators. I have videos with honeybees just swarming this, and bumblebees and native bees and butterflies. And it's tough as nails and super xeric and kind of seed like dandelions. So I think thistles are really terrific pollinator plants in a garden. The cacti are especially great for all sorts of pollinators, especially the native bees. And there are some native bees, mostly ground dwelling and solitary bees, whose entire life cycle is spent around the blooming time of certain cacti. This claret cup, the bees utilize it, but also the hummingbirds. Of course, it's just winding down on lavender season at the farm. We've been harvesting for pretty much all through the month of July, and with what 6 to 8 hives along the lavender fields, and then our other 4 hives over in the bee house. I'm always amazed at how many bees are there. And one of the things that I've learned from work with so many great beekeepers and my time spent with bees is not only do some of us know about the calming effect of bees by the sound that they make, that they buzz in the key of middle C, which is sort of a white noise, which is very relaxing. And in the Slovenian bee house, you can meditate and smell the propolis and beeswax and listen to that noise, and it's calming. But I know that when Lara has helped me learn how to make hive splits, or when we install packages, I go home and I'm just so relaxed in the evening, and I just I notice it quite clearly. I just feel great, and I think it was just that I work with bees, that I spent hours that day just surrounded by bees, and I'm sure I'll get stung like mad one of these days, but I haven't ever been stung working with bees yet. I get stung. I've been stung once or twice harvesting lavender. Normally we'll wave our little hand cutting knives over the plants to disperse the bees, but invariably you start talking to the person harvesting next to you and you reach down and you grab a bunch of lavender to cut. And that's when I've been stung. I'm certain that one day it'll happen, but mostly I'm just so in awe of everything that I'm learning when I'm in a hive that it's one of the most meditative things I've done in my life. This is Rocky Mountain bee plant, a super plant. It's well named. The bees obviously love it, but all of the pollinators love it. It's a native plant. It grows in really poor soil. It doesn't take much water. It's in the Clayame family. It can get anywhere from 3 to 5 or 6 feet tall, depending on soil and moisture. It also goes by names like Navajo spinach. It's a nutritious plant, and in past history, the Pueblo people would cultivate this plant or collect it from the wild and boil down the leaves and press them into cakes and dry them. I understand the flavor isn't terrific, but it's very nutritious. And in lean times, in times of drought, when corn and beans and squash were maybe not so easy to grow, they could take out these dried cakes of the Rocky Mountain bee plant and boil them back down and make a pretty nutritious meal. So I understand that the bee plant helped Pueblo people through times of famine in the past. It's also a plant that is a great dye plant, and I know work with some folks from Zuni Pueblo that when you boil this down, it makes a great dark dye, which is the black paint used in Zuni black and white pottery design. I just love texture, color, shadow, light. When I look at gardens, when I'm designing gardens or just enjoying gardens, I love to look at them in the morning, in the afternoon, in the winter, in the summer, and just see the play of shadow and light and texture. Right now, I have a couple of old agaves out in my front yard that have, one of them has a flower spike that's probably, oh God, almost 30 feet tall, pollinated by Orioles and honeybees and bats and who knows who else. Of course, the plant dies by degrees, and I'll have a heck of a time removing it. But the stock out there is amazing right now. You know, this little guy, this is when I ran Plants of the Southwest. We had a family of Western Screech Owls in a hollow in a tree down the road. And when they hatched out and moved out of the nest, we had a little family of owls spend about a week hanging out in the nursery. They're great insect predators, and coming out at night, they feast on a lot of moths and things. But again, I consider myself so fortunate to have spent all of my life so close to nature. I think you know, as a kid here growing up in the 60s, it was a much smaller place, a much freer place. We were free range kids. We were out all of the time, and I think Mother Nature grabbed a hold of me very early on and never let go, and I couldn't be more grateful. These guys, it was morning. I was opening up the store, trying to take their picture, and it's as though they were looking at me. Hey, we've been up all night. Get that camera out of our face. So this is also my backyard. This is what I call ladies' brunch. The turtle at the top and at the right and at the bottom, those are all female three-toed box turtles enjoying a brunch of turtle food and grapes and banana and hard-boiled egg. The turtle to the left in the center is Mr. T, my oldest alpha male turtle. Never interested in ladies' brunch. He would come and look. He'd rather have mealworms and wasn't very social. He'd rather just chase the ladies individually during breeding season. I had him and a female turtle that I called Big Mama in my backyard for nearly 30 years. And Mr. T, this is the first year he didn't come back, so I think I may have lost him. The Apuntia species, the other cactus, this is a native bee inside the cactus. If any of you have sort of the paddle leaf cactus, the Apuntias, I would encourage you to go out, and when the flowers are wide open, first watch for all the bees that might be in there and how they seem to stumble around drunk. But I'd encourage you to take your finger and rub it around inside the center of the flower and watch how all of those pollen-loaded stamens just bend down, almost like a Venus flytrap. And I think it's one of the cool things, like co-evolution, how it seems the flower is determined to get as much pollen on the pollinator as it possibly can. So if any of you have any of these cactus growing in your yard, I would really encourage you to try that. It's something I only learned like maybe 8 years ago, so always something new. Lots of little cactus. I just love cacti because the flowers are like something from outer space. So just pretty cool looking. I think I kind of wanted to rush through this in a way because this has been a long day of super information. And I had asked the group when they asked me to give this presentation if I should give this one because I do have pollinator presentations and things that are more biocentric or designed to show you plants to plant in your garden for your bees or to attract pollinators. But I did agree with them that this was just sort of a nice breathing space after all of that intense information. But again, I'm just so grateful to all of you. Number one, for asking me to join you, but for my co-presenters for just loading me up with so much information. I know I'm going to be coming back to every one of your presentations. I made lots of notes. I took lots of screenshots, but this has just been an amazing day. So thank you all.
Well, Wes, I just have to thank you for bringing us to so many wonderful and different places, and also, reminding us to take time to enjoy the beauty and the connections. You reminded us of so many of the connections in the natural world. So it was quite wonderful. We don't have a huge number of questions for you, as you might expect, but a lot of really beautiful comments. One of the comments was incredibly soothing to watch your photos after thinking about the monstrous Varroa destruction. Thank you, Wes. Love what you do with organic gardening. Another comment from one of our other presenters. What a great way to finish the day. Thanks, Wes and organizers. And so it was really Kathy Grassel's idea to include you at this point in the conference. And it was really kind of prescient in that sense that it was the perfect way to end, as you said, a very technically filled day. Just what a wonderful collection of photographs you have.
Well, thank you all very much. Yeah, I think that, we've all been through a lot in this last year and a half. I like the parallels that Randy drew between the COVID, the virus that we're going through now, and the mites. And I also was very moved by what's going on with him and his family. And so I think thanks Kathy for asking me, because when we're all under such pressure and stress, this is why I do what I do, because these sort of things are really soothing and rewarding to me. So thank you guys.
Awesome. You do have a couple questions. Kathy's asking, are your hives at Los Poblanos also for honey production as well as NMSU research?
We hope that they will be. We've actually lost hives. This is only my third year of keeping bees at Los Poblanos. And last year we only had one hive make it through the winter, and it was a top bar, or this year I would say. And so that one top bar that made it through last winter, we actually have split twice now. And so we have 3 hives out of the one, but we've actually repopulated our hives. So mostly we've only, when we pulled honey, for the most part, it's been when we're working with hives and doing splits and comb breaks, and we harvest a small amount of honey, because at this point, we're really leaving it for the bees. One day we want it to be for production, but the main thing is to understand how to sustainably or regeneratively keep bees healthy and doing well on the property. The bees come first. The honey is an aside. It's really to understand more about hive health more than anything. I'll get to that point.
That's great. I did see the honey house, or the bee house with the Slovenian hives a number of years ago, but I'd love to come down, and I don't think there were any bees in it at the time.
Yeah, full right now.
That's awesome. I want to come down and meditate. I think that's a premium charge at Los Poblanos, right?
Well, it depends on who you talk to.
Okay, well, I think I have a friend in the business.
Yeah.
Another question that we got, there was a question from someone who also keeps bees in a variety of different hive types. He wants to know about your different management experience with AZ Slovenian, Lang, and Top Bar.
So I don't have any personal experience with the Lang because when I started working with beekeepers almost 15 years ago, it was at the nursery, and I had an employee that was a beekeeper and a swarm catcher, and he asked if we could keep bees. He did Top Bar. And then I worked with Beth Crowder. She came to keep bees with me when the initial gentleman left, and she did Top Bar. And then Laura Lovell has been my bee mentor for almost 7 years now. And she kept and keeps Top Bar, but she's the one that introduced me to the Slovenian. So I'm now getting an education with Slovenian, and Top Bar has been my main experience. The Langs belong to NMSU, and I know a lot of beekeepers that do keep Langs, but I don't have personal experience. Right now, the NMSU study was showing that early on, the flow hive was doing better than the others, but as the summer has progressed, I don't think that that's the case. And I don't know enough about the flow hive. It's too new, and I'm personally not so interested in that one.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, again, we have more comments. What a great way to finish the day. Thanks, Wes and organizers. Amazing photos. Wow. And finally, Kathy wants to remind us that you always give us hope for the future. So what a beautiful way to end the day.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
Okay.